only 3% of women reach $1 million mark. And only 1% of women of color are able to do that.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to lead yourself before you can effectively lead others.
Yeah. Leading a business is one thing, but leading people, your team, your clients, your community, and yourself is a whole new level of leadership. If you've ever felt pressure to lead, to hold it all together, to make the decisions, support your team, show up online, coach the clients, be the one everyone counts on, and thought, who's holding me? Then you're not alone, because most of us are actually figuring it out as we go. And this is why I had to have today's guest on, Erica Ferguson. She's a leadership strategist, speaker, and an embodiment of a leader. So in this episode, we're talking about what it actually means to lead in today's world, the real meaning of leadership, and how to hold your power and rise through the moments that most people never talk about. So if you've ever doubted your authority, felt alone in leadership, or questioned if you're doing it right, then this one's going to hit really, really deep, as this conversation is the one you probably didn't know you needed. Let's dive in. Erica Ferguson, welcome to Unstoppable Success.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to chat to you. So this is an interesting story for people listening. How did we end up here? So on the weekend, we're here in LA. We are both going to the Create and Cultivate Festival, and they invented this new app where you can network with people before the event, which I think is really cool, because sometimes you go to these events and you have no idea who's who and what's what, and you kind of go in intentionally, but you kind of just meet who you meet. But this allows us to be intentional. So I was scrolling through and I saw your name pop up and it said leadership expert, and I thought, I need this. But also, we haven't had someone come on and talk about leadership. And I think leadership is such an important skill, whether you're building a team, whether you're building a community. And so you willingly said, hey, this stranger reached out, let's hang out.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. So I love just traveling for this purpose. I mean, you never know who you might meet. You never know what connection you might make, or just what doors might open.
Yeah.
So,
and excited to have the conversation. When you reached out, I was like, yeah, why not?
And you rearranged your schedule?
Rearranged the schedule. We made it happen.
Amazing.
You flew across the world and I rearranged my schedule. It's the least I could do.
I love how things just work out. And I think a lot of people get stuck in, I'm too busy, or it's too hard to fly across the country or the world. But when you want to do something, you always make it happen. So thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. Okay. The first thing I always ask every guest, which I think is something that as women in business, we don't talk about enough, because we get taught, be humble, be down to earth, don't brag, chill out a little bit. But I want to flip the script, because I think the more obnoxious we can be about our success, the more inspiring it is for others, but also the more it almost creates like this safety within us to be like, I'm safe being seen in my success. So I want to hear, like, what is something you've achieved recently that you want to give us your most unhumble brag?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think for where I'm at in life right now, I would probably have to say it's the ability to reinvent myself. I am a self-dubbed career adventurer. I've had many different lives, it feels like. I've recently, in the last 2.5, 3 years, become a mom, carry in pregnancy and deliver and go through labor and all of that. And I did, and this business. And, on the way over here, I actually passed by my old restaurant. So I used to have a restaurant here in Los Angeles, but it opened during the pandemic. So very short-lived. But so many lessons. And I think it's just this ability to constantly reinvent yourself and to take on those new identities. As a former athlete who was a very serious athlete was my whole identity. And then you leave that world, like it just rocks you if you're not prepared. So I think that is for women, for everyone, for so many people. It's like you get grounded in these identities, and how are you able to reinvent yourself, or to see the skill sets, as we're talking about leadership, how to see the skills that you learn in that identity or that time in your life and carry them forward.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome, because I think we can get stuck in even just this idea of the sunken cost of the time that we've put into it. And we're like, but we've spent all this time building, whether it's building a business, whether it's investing in a career in sport. And we almost have this attachment, even though we know it's not right for where we're going, but we hold on to it because we've put so much energy into it, or our identity is attached to it.
Yeah.
But it's so true, because the skills you learn, the growth you have, the deeper you step into your leadership, I think even just the ability to choose to pivot, to choose to let go, is kind of the definition of leadership.
Yeah.
Because you're leading yourself first.
Absolutely. And it's not easy by any means.
No.
Like, it could be very scary to kind of step off the ledge, step into a new identity. As entrepreneurs, you know, that's not an easy journey. And humble brag and kudos to us is that as women, it's like only 3% of women reach $1 million mark. And only 1% of women of color are able to do that.
Yeah.
So I do think it's really important that we are having these types of conversations.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your journey with us today. Okay, so you are the queen of leadership. We're setting the title now, but leadership, I think sometimes people can think, oh, the title of CEO or the title means that now I'm a leader, but it's so much more than that. So what does leadership mean to you?
Oh, yeah, it's a loaded question. I think what's kind of the beautiful thing about leadership is that you yourself can be a leader. You've got to be able to be a leader. You have to be able to lead yourself before you can effectively lead others.
Yeah.
And in being a leader, I feel like there are so many beautiful combinations that can make someone a leader, right? So it's like, if we compare two different leaders, they're going to have different strengths. They're going to have different weaknesses. And it's the ability of the leader to form a team and the people around them that can support some of those weaknesses or help to make the team successful, right? So a successful leader is able to get respect and give respect to the people around them, to understand, hey, we're trying to reach this goal. And again, that's for me as an individual, even if I'm not leading a team, it's like I have personal goals in life, and people, you don't get there by yourself. I'm sure like you've had 5 businesses, is that correct, right? And it's like there were people who were supporting you or opened a door or took a call or took a meeting with you. And it's like you wouldn't have built that success without those people. But if you were rude to them right out the gate, it's like that was going to be a very hard journey. Yeah. So that mutual respect is so important. Emotional intelligence and empathy is so important. You have to have self-awareness. You have to know yourself. You got to have social awareness. You got to be able to pick up on what other people are going through or who other people are or what their needs are. You have to be able to manage relationships. You have to be able to manage your own emotions. Yeah. Right. So that is all so important. And then lastly, I think what we were talking about a little bit here earlier is that you have to be able to, within respect, still be direct and to get things done. You still have to be able to execute. And there's a way to do that. It's not that you need to be liked by everyone. Yeah. Sure, it's a bonus, right, if everyone likes you, but respect is what we're going for, right? Yeah. Is that I respect you and you respect me, and this is what we're working towards together.
Yeah. How do people create that respect? Because I think whether you are building a team, you need their buy-in for the bigger vision. You need that respect to be able to lead. Whether you're building a community, whether it's even with clients or your husband or your partners or your mum or whoever it is that you're trying to lead, how do you cultivate, like, whether it's an environment or that energy that you bring to get that respect?
Yeah. And that's where I kind of go back to my fundamental teachings when I teach in leadership is seen, heard, valued. So if you as a leader or even as an individual, this is so important, is the first is to be seen. When you think about yourself, it's how do you want to be seen? How do you want to be acknowledged and validated? But on the flip side, you also have to do that for others, right? How does Jess want to be seen? How does Jess want to be validated and acknowledged, right? If I am using someone's incorrect name, right? I just make up a nickname for them. It's like, is there going to be mutual respect there if I'm just like, hey, new guy, new girl, go and get that coffee for me, right? Respect out the window. So looking at how we're seeing people, how are we hearing people, right? That we're cultivating psychological safety. So psychological safety is being able to create an environment where people are able to show up as themselves. They're able to ask questions, make mistakes, take risks, share their learning, share their contributions without fear of any retribution. Yeah. And that's so important because I want people to be able to share their ideas so that then we can get into heard, right? How am I hearing people?
Yeah.
How am I listening and being an active listener to people? And then how am I valuing them, right? So how am I giving gratitude and thanks, and how am I adding value in the same way? So when we talk about respect, we're talking about this environment that we create as leaders. And again, that is as an individual, you create that when you're working with your customers, when you're working with your peers, your family. Like that's the baseline for generating respect.
Yeah. Okay. If people are listening right now and they're kind of wondering, okay, I understand the importance of it. How do you know what someone else needs? Because it's almost like this nuance, because what people say isn't always what they're feeling or what they mean. So how do you encourage people to tap into that emotional intelligence?
Yeah. I mean, the first is to ask them. I work with so many leaders and I'm like, have you ever asked them what they want, what they need? And somebody will be like, no, I just kind of assume this is what they want or what they want to do. So the first is to ask them.
Yeah.
Now, if you feel like you're asking them and they're not giving you an honest answer, there's probably some more things we need to look at there is like, why aren't they being honest with you? But then we got to go a little deeper, okay? So they're not maybe giving me the answer that they really need, and it's like, why is that? So is, going back to psychological safety, is psychological safety lacking? Is it that last time I asked someone what they wanted or what they needed, I then chewed their head off because it wasn't what I wanted or needed, right?
Yeah.
And so then it's like, well, of course no one's coming to you now and telling you what they want or what they need. They're just going to tell me what they want to hear because they're like, I'm not trying to be the next one to get yelled at. So it's so important that we are able as leaders to have these open conversations. But, you know, as we start getting into teams that have a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with sending out an anonymous survey, right? If it's like, hey, I just need to get some touch points on these 50 people that I oversee, then let's send out an anonymous survey. Let's get some touch points and let's look for ways that we can get real and honest feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just ask.
Yeah, just ask. It sounds simple, but people are like, oh, well, I don't know. Because some people, I'll be honest, some leaders fear what they'll get back, right? If I'm to ask you, you know, what do you think of me as a leader? Where are my strengths? Where could I use some improvement? And some people don't want to hear that. Like, so a lot of us, we create this image in our head of who we are, and we don't want to really hear differently sometimes. So you have to be able, which I think brings to another point, if you're familiar with Ryan Holiday, ego is the enemy, you have to be able to relinquish some of that ego to be a successful leader, right? I'm not the one that's always taking all the credit. The team, we did this together. So if I truly want to create that environment, then again, going back to self-awareness, like I've got to work on that.
Yeah. How do you release the ego?
How much time do we have? How do you release the ego? Oh, such a good question.
Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly building personal brands, there's this underlying desire of wanting to be seen. And we actually just had someone else on the podcast talking about that fame energy and being seen. And I think there's a huge desire, which can be such a superpower in being visible as a leader, being visible as a thought leader. But then there's a balance between, is it now falling into ego or is it falling into let me be seen so I can make a deeper impact? So do you have any tangible tips?
Ooh, great question. I mean, the most important there is your ego starting to erode the business, right? So are you getting to a point where this is my business, this is my show? As an example, I had a boss in my career adventuring who was kind of like a Devil Wears Prada situation.
Okay.
And I was told by that boss, it is not my job to make you happy. I am the captain of this ship, and if you do not like it, get off. Like that. I was very bluntly told that, right?
Okay.
And as an individual contributor, that definitely shifted my mindset. Like, okay, I get it. Like, at least you were transparent with me. I'm going to get what I need out of this, and then I am off this ship, right? I'm packing my bags. I'm ready to roll. But when you think about ego, right, that's an example of there is like, I am not going to be flexible at all for anyone. And this is how I'm going to do things. I don't care if I have to steamroll people, right? That's a different way of kind of looking at ego versus ego being, hey, this is my name. This is my brand. So you all really need to understand the why of why I need you to do your job as XYZ, because at the end of the day, this does reflect me. It does reflect my quality of work. Like that's a very different approach to ego than I am the captain of this ship. And if you don't like it, get out.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
So it's about the approach, because there's nothing wrong with honing that. This is my team. This is my business, right? We operate together.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if everyone messes up this project, like, I have to answer for it. And I'm okay to take that on. I want you to have risk. I want you to experiment. But it's just how we are in conversation and how transparent we are in just those conversations.
Yeah. How important do you think it is for leaders to work on themselves first before they, whether it's hire a team, build their team, or even if it's bringing on clients or building a community?
It's so important. It rarely happens, just when it's so important.
Right. Why do you think it rarely happens?
Because there's so many other things that become priority, right? Especially when you're trying to be an entrepreneur and run a business. It's like, hey, Erica, it'd be great to work on myself, but I got bills to pay, right? Me sitting here and doing work on myself doesn't pay the bills right now. So it's like, I need to get out.
Not
I
tangibly.
Need to be, it's not tangibly.
Always,
yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it, is that people don't see the immediate ROI versus I can pick up this call, I can make this sale. ROI. I've got money coming in. But me working on my temper, or me working on how I lead a team, or how I give feedback, or how I communicate more effectively, right? Like, people don't always take the time. We have a program that we run, which I love, and it's an aspiring managers program, because we work a lot with like corporations and sports teams and just like team structure. And it's an aspiring manager program for a large Fortune 500 company. And it's for those who think they want to go into people management. And what's really great about this is that people are giving their time to realize, is this the path for me?
Right.
And people don't usually do that. Usually we come in because they've been promoted to a people leader position, and they were very good at their technical skills, why they got promoted, but they don't have the people skills.
Yeah.
And you've really got to make that switch when you go into leading people. And I think even as entrepreneurs, it's like, you want to have your hand on everything, because you know how you like it. You can feel like you can do it quicker, but you have to relinquish that control to be a successful people leader.
Yeah. How do you do that? Because honestly, how? I am very much a control freak, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are, because they've built it from scratch. They have built the business the way they want it, and most entrepreneurs have done every job themselves. Like, I've done the graphic design, I've done the edit video, I've done every single role in the business, and we have a certain way that we like it done. So how do you recommend someone release control? Because since I've been on tour the past 4 weeks, I've actually really had to step back even more, because normally I'd be like, I need to approve every single word that goes out, because it's my name on the brand. And I've had to really zoom out even more, because I can't. I'm traveling, I'm doing meetings, I'm doing podcasts, I'm on a different time zone, and they've been doing great. But it's internally a battle, I'm always find. So how do you recommend that? Because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well who maybe hire someone and then they fire them straight away. Because they don't meet the requirements or the standards.
Yes. And I think that last word you just said is so important, the standards. It's how clear are you being on the standards? And I think as leaders sometimes is like, we're either one end of the spectrum or the other end. So we're to the micromanagement end of the spectrum, where it's like every little thing needs to be how I do it. And the issue with that is, if we haven't clearly defined success, because there's many ways to get to the end goal. And we have a way that we've always taken, right? This is the path that we've always taken, but they find this other path. And so now the issue is, well, they got to what you said was success. So is it the path that they took that is bothering you? Like, because it's not the way you did it, or it doesn't make sense to you. So being able to align on expectations and what success is very important. Because even if they took your path, but then it wasn't the end result, then it's like, okay, but this is how you told me to do it, and I did it that way, but you're still not happy with the end result. So being able to level set those standards and those expectations is so important. And you have to, as a leader, especially if you're going to build a team. I mean, this is the reality, is if you are going to have people work for you, let them work for you. Like, that's the big thing. I talk to so many leaders, I'm like, why are you doing all this by yourself? And even myself, I get stuck in this. It's like, why are you doing this yourself? You hired someone to do a job, let them do their job. And as someone's coming into your team, it's this balance of directing and coaching, right? Asking and telling. So if you're starting someone out, you're probably doing a lot more directing, a lot more telling. This is how we do this. This is where you find this. This is the knowledge resource. All of that, versus as they get into their role, or if they're more senior, you're doing more coaching and guiding, right? You're kind of just putting up the guardrails and letting them figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to also, as a leader, understand your own time constraints, because I know that it gets very frustrating as an individual contributor if you're telling me, Jess, hey, I want you to figure this out. I want you to do it your way. But then you turn around and say, I need this now. Right. So that wouldn't be the time to give me the open space to experiment because you have a quicker turnaround. Yeah. So in that, I just need more clarity of, hey, I need this done and I need it done this way. Maybe there's a little room for me to have some like autonomy, but we also as leaders have to be more clear on what is it that we need and want.
I'm already learning so much. No, this is great because I think not enough people actively seek out leadership training. I truly believe, particularly in entrepreneurship. I think in corporations, we're kind of used to the hierarchy or the leadership and the management styles. But in entrepreneurship, we're kind of like, oh shit, I need to hire someone. Let me quickly get them on board and let me just figure this out. And we're flying by the seat of our pants. We're moving so fast. How do you recommend people communicate things if they are in a really, really fast-paced environment and entrepreneurs maybe have limited time? Because a lot of things that my clients come to me around as well is, I would love to hire someone, I just don't have the time. So what advice would you have around that? This episode is brought to you by Crazy Domains. I've used them from day one across all 5 of my businesses for my website domains and my emails. They've got everything you need to build and manage your online presence all in one place. Their tools are so simple to use. Their friendly 24/7 customer support actually shows up when you need them. And if you ever need extra guidance, they even offer free consults. So if you're growing your brand online and want to keep things streamlined, check them out at crazydomains.com.au. All right, let's get into today's episode.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say, which is always kind of the counter argument, is like, when are you ever going to have the time? And are you ever going to have the time if you don't hire someone to help you? Right? It's kind of like you're in this vicious cycle, like with that. It's like you have to prioritize the time to clear up more of the things that you want to do or that you are more of the expert in. Yeah. So you've got to make the time. Like it's so important that you make the time to be able to get someone in. And to have them train and to be able to execute. Yeah. So important. And I think the other thing when you were talking about that and kind of that mentality shift of investing in yourself and leadership is coming from a athletic background, right? When you look at athletes, especially high-level athletes, they do so much in training. It's training, game, performance. Training, game, performance. Yeah. But what happens for us as entrepreneurs is it's performance, little bit of training, performance, right? Like it's just like you're constantly going, and you're not giving yourself that time to train and to address some of those skill gaps and to level up yourself and your team.
Yeah. Okay. How do you know what level of training people need as well if they're not quite sure? Because maybe it's a new role for them as well. How do you know what gaps to fill and where to put your time and energy if you do have less time?
It's a great question. So there are a lot of different assessment tools. Like if you ever heard of DISC, Myers-Briggs, there's like so many different assessment tools out there now.
Like personality tools.
Yeah, all of those. Enneagram. I mean, there's so many different tools that can help you to be more self-aware, to understand yourself. A great framework, I know we lean into DISC a lot because communication really is like foundational to everything. Like how are you going to lead yourself? How are you going to advocate for yourself if you can't effectively communicate? Right? It's so important when you look at communication. And looking into DISC is like there are different styles of communication. So even that can start to help you as a leader to understand what is my style, right? Am I someone that is very direct, right? Even if you think about in terms of like an email, right? I need bullet points, right? If you're going to send me an email, it needs the bullet points. You send me a novel, right. I'm not going to read it.
And you communicate that to your staff.
And you communicate that because you understand these things about yourself and you get them to also understand the things about themselves. One thing, if you are leading a team that can be very helpful is to just have a meeting about communication preferences. So even in like, what is urgent? right? If something is quote unquote urgent, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
how quickly do you expect someone to respond, right? So it's like, hey, if it's this or this, I need a response within a couple hours. If it's this,
Yeah.
24 hours. Like even those conversations, 'cause
Okay.
a lot of time we just make assumptions that our
Yeah.
team knows
Understand.
these things. Yeah. And it's like, what's appropriate for a text versus a Slack message versus a phone call versus a video call versus you need to meet with me in person.
Yes.
Right? Because that's another thing I'll talk to leaders is that they get so bogged down by meetings because they have to have one-on-ones with all their employees. And it's like, well, do all of these need to be one-on-ones all the time?
Yeah.
Right? Like, are there other forms of communication that we can use? So that's just one example. But it starts to get you thinking about what are some of those gaps? And then the last thing I'll add is in your one-on-ones, if you're trying to address someone else's skill gaps, is to ask them, where is it that they want to go? What is it that they want to achieve? And that starts to help you see, okay, they're here today. They're telling me they want to be here. What are the gaps that are missing to close this for them?
Yeah.
Gives them more of a why, right? Why I'm having you do this project, why I'm telling you this isn't good enough or too satisfactory, because you've told me where you want to go. And I also want to help you to get there. As you help me in my business, I want to help you grow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you feel like these things apply to if you're building a broader community, for example? So it may not necessarily be directly in your employment or inside your company, but it may be a community, an audience, clients, customers. How does that apply in that way? And how do you build a culture where people feel really, really connected?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I'll go back to seen, heard, valued because it really applies to everything. But when you're talking about building a community, whether it's an online community, it's the global community, right? It's thinking about how am I seeing the people in this community, right? Obviously, I'm forming this community. There's some type of need that I am meeting for them to be a part of my community. But then it's like, how am I hearing them? Because they're going to give you feedback. They're going to say, hey, we want to do this. We want more of these events. We want more of these offerings. How am I hearing them? And then how am I really putting value into them? So is it that I'm dropping some type of ebook or e-learning, or I'm doing live sessions for them?
Yeah.
So I think if you're really trying to form community, it's coming back to seen, heard, valued, and relationships. Because the other thing I'll add in is like, as we are all living in this world of Gen AI and AI taking off rapidly, our focus, especially for our company, is the people side of that. Like use those tools to make the team more effective and efficient, for sure, but understand that it's still people behind the tools, at least as of today, right? And how are we valuing people? Because once those tools take off, what's left is our relationships.
Yeah. That's so important. How do you balance the, I guess, leadership versus friendship? Because I think some people kind of go too far into let's be best friends so you feel so valued and seen, but let's chit chat like girlfriends. And how do you draw that line? Because I think even sometimes with clients, like I love to be friends with my clients. We connect on that deeper level with my team as well. But I think there's still a level of respect that's a little bit different.
Yes. Yeah, very, very important. Work with a lot of people who go, as we make the term buddy to boss, right? You go like if we're a peer and then it's like, oh, I get promoted and now I'm your boss. It's such important to have that conversation with someone that's like, hey, we can, of course, be friendly. I want to know about your life outside of this project or this work that we're doing together. But there still has to be that baseline of respect of, sure, we can set aside time to catch up, to chat, but then it's like, this is what this meeting is for. Like there has to be that clarity, because if not, you're a very busy person who's now spent an hour catching up about some TV show or some game that happened, right? So it has to be still that very clearly defined, like this is what we're here to accomplish and to stay on track in that. And sometimes that's helpful to do that as two separate meetings. It's like, hey, let's do a catch up. Let's have some coffee. Let's have some tea. That's this meeting.
Yes.
And this meeting is the work.
Oh my gosh, I love that, because sometimes I've had really good friends become clients and I always say to them, when we're in this area, whether it's a separate chat app, like we're friends when we're texting. If you message me on WhatsApp, that's for coaching. And it's almost like segregating the environments, because then it also has allowed me to say, okay, I'm now in my friend energy. I am no longer in a coach energy, or I'm no longer in a work energy. And then when I am in that space, it kind of clicks on. And I found that really, really helpful. So that's interesting.
And if I can ask you a question, how have you noticed that people respond to that when you are like hey, this is for work in this space? Like, we found people to be respectful of that?
Yeah, they are. So when we're catching up as friends, they won't say, so Jess, how do I make more sales in my business? Whereas if we're in the coach energy, then we can chat through that. But if we're in friend energy, it's just chatting about casual things. The tonality is different. The energy is different. And I actually had a friend come on my retreat. I just ran a retreat in Greece, literally flew from Greece to here. And she was almost shocked because she'd never seen me in coach energy. And she came into my retreat and I was, we were on the ferry going to the islands and I was in friend energy. Even though I was running the retreat, I'm not coaching you right now. We're on a ferry. We're trying to get there. And then she said, oh my gosh, like witnessing the switch. And it's sometimes people think it's being inauthentic, but it's actually just different versions of you, different energies. So she said, wow, how did you just turn that on? I was like, well, because then I got my paper and my notes were ready. I was here. And now we're in a workshop. Yeah. So for me, that's been a huge shift.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, what you just said, is understanding that there are these different versions of yourself, because so many people get stuck in this, well, that's not authentic to me, right? Even when you think about being on stage, if anyone has dreams to do keynotes or be on stage, it's like that person that you are on stage is big and boisterous and you're commanding the room. And it's not like you walk into, a library and you're like, hi, I'm Erica and I'm here today. Like, that's not,
Could you imagine waking up and I'm saying to my husband, good morning, what would you like for breakfast today? And it's like not the vibe. But I don't know, something in people's minds is so afraid of being seen as inauthentic that they don't give themselves permission to be the different versions of themselves.
Yeah. It's thinking of it like a piano, right?
Yeah.
There are these notes, not that I play piano. So if anyone plays piano, I'm not, I just know that there are different notes and different keys that are on a piano, right? And you have these deeper tones on the piano, and then you have these really light tones on the piano. And it's all the same piano that makes all these different sounds and the ways that it can come across to us as we listen. Yes. And it's the same thing for us as humans, right? When we're speaking and when we are stepping into these different versions of ourselves, like they're all you. It only doesn't feel authentic because you're just not used to using that version of yourself. You haven't practiced that muscle. You haven't played that key. Yeah. But it's still you.
That's so powerful. I actually want to dig into a little bit of your leadership for a moment. Yeah. What have you had to navigate? Because I'm sure you didn't wake up and you were born and you were like, I am a leader. Here we are. I don't think anyone is born a leader because even if we think back to the way our brains are wired, caveman era, we are hardwired to be followers. To fit in, to be part of the tribe, to stay alive. Yeah. So
number one, stay alive.
Yeah. What have you had to navigate? Like, was there a moment that gave you your biggest realization or transformation?
That's a really good question. I think in growing up in athletics, which I think sports are so good for kids coming up, they just teach so many different life lessons, even if you don't go on to play at a high level, just being able to be on a team and be in that environment. And on many sports teams, because politics are still a thing everywhere, but on many sports teams, to be a captain of a team, you earn that. Right? Like you earn that type of leadership through your work ethic, through your ability to bring people together, to see the best in people, to remind them how much of a badass they are when they're like, oh, I had a bad game and I don't know. It's like, no, you got this, right? So I think that there's so many skills that I learned just in athletics. And I'll say that as I've gone through my career adventuring, as I like to say, in running a restaurant, running an MMA facility, I was in many, many different things. I have a whole laundry list. It's like I have these different skill sets where I realized like coaching was the key theme, no matter which industry or what role I was in. But it was also the ability just to naturally like draw people in, right? That people naturally were like, hey, like you see me, you treat me with respect. Like I want, like, sure, I'll do this thing for you or I'll help out. And like me, vice versa. What can I do for you? How can I help you? So I think it's a lot of meeting people where they are And I'll also say is one of these other things in leadership is if you hear from people over and over again, like, have you ever thought about, have you ever blah, blah, blah. It's like people see something in you that you don't see in yourself. Because so many people are leaders, and you can be a leader without the title. We need to be very clear on that.
Yeah.
It's not that you need a title to be a leader. Even when you think about your family, right? Are you the one who's leading the family when it comes to events, right? Like, hey, we're going to go and do this weekend. We're going to go and do that, right? That is a leader. Like you are leading a group of people. Like you are even stay-at-home moms. I must say, as a mom now, stay-at-home moms deserve, and dads, all parents, stay-at-home caregivers. It's so hard. It's so hard. And it's like there is leadership even in that. Like, and people don't see that. So I think it's just taking the time to see and dive into like, what is a leader? What does leadership mean to you? And how are you leading yourself, and how are you leading others?
Yeah.
Because we've seen headlines. We've seen so many people who don't know how to lead effectively. Now, they might be, quote unquote, successful, but they also have very high turnover in people who work for them.
Yes.
Right? They also reach a point where they burn out, right?
Yeah.
Because people aren't giving of themselves as much as other people when they feel like they are respected. So
how do you deal with helping your clients with crisis management? So leaders are still human beings, and I think sometimes people can forget that everyone is a human being, and sometimes people are put on a certain pedestal if they're mega successful or they've got the huge title, but sometimes they have moments of being a human. Maybe they crack under pressure. Maybe they say something they shouldn't have. How do you help your clients manage that? Where does it start, especially in this era of cancel culture or being called out online? And I think this is a trend that I do not agree with, but TikTok is loving right now if you call people out for being rude in person, and just, it's not my vibe. But anyway, it's happening.
So you're like, it's happening.
It's happening
everywhere
out there. Yeah.
I mean, it's so important that as leaders, if we aren't already, right, we'll start with some proactive measures. If we aren't already, that we are creating an environment where risk and failures and mistakes are okay. Now, of course, we can't be making multi-million-dollar mistakes, right? Like it's like, okay. But like low risk like that, I want you to take a chance. I want you to do it, because the reality is like, it's not if I make a mistake, it's when, right? Like even as the leader, I'm going to make mistakes. So being able to have a culture where it says, hey, we make these mistakes and we learn from them. And we even have meetings, right? We have stand-ups where we say, what did you learn this past week, right? Here's what I learned, right? I learned that you don't click that button because I about lost half our data, right? I learned these things. And that teaching creates that environment proactively where it's like, okay, I made this mistake. Or you know what? I said this thing that maybe wasn't the most politically correct, right? But I've learned why that wasn't the correct way to say that. Like I understand better because I took the time to listen to people. I didn't just double down and say, well, I'm sorry that your feelings are hurt. Right? Like it's this intent versus impact a lot too. We teach this understanding, like if you imagine that there was a fly in the room with us right now, Jess, and we're having this beautiful conversation. I really want to be focused on you. But this fly is like driving me crazy. So I have my fly swatter. Of course, I just have in my pocket. And I swing for the fly. And I completely miss the fly, and I just smack you in the face. And of course, you'd be like, oh, what? Like, you just smack me in the face? But I don't say I'm sorry. I don't take any responsibility for it. I just really anchor in, well, I was trying to take out the fly. Right? And it's like, how does that make you feel? It's like, I can't even own up to say, my bad. Like, that wasn't my intention, but that was the impact. So proactively creating that type of environment. Now, if we say, great, Erica, but I haven't had that type of environment and I've made this mistake, it's time to start having that environment, to start saying, hey, I made this mistake, or I was wrong, right? I said we were going to do this, this, and this, and I didn't do those things. I didn't follow what we said were our values and our mission as a team. And this is what I'm going to do differently going forward. And I want the accountability of all of you as we go forward in that. So it is a lot of full circle, setting the ego aside.
Okay, one last thing I want to ask you, because a huge part of leadership, again, I think it's relevant to everything, whether you're convincing your partner what to have for dinner, whether you're leading a team towards a certain mission, whether you're selling to potential clients, we need influence. And I think influence, sometimes people get it mixed up with manipulation. But ultimately, I think influence is learning how to communicate a common purpose. But do you have any tips around how people can tap into their influence more, get people's buy-in to the bigger vision and create a certain type of action that you want to create?
Yeah. With influence, I think it's definitely you understanding what is it that you are trying to do? Because so many leaders just don't have a clear vision themselves, or they're all over the place, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. So having very clear vision of what is it that you are trying to do, and then looking for those resources that support that, right? To have that influence. And as we are guiding the team to be able to execute and to carry out those things. So that's so important. I mean, influence, motivation, all of these things, they come and go so fast. So we've got to look at what are our consistent things that we can put into place that help us to keep a pipeline of that, right? Is it that we write? Is it that we listen to podcasts? Is it that we have brainstorm time together as a team? So it's just finding those modes and those methods that are going to create a pipeline of consistency when we think of influence and motivation that then leads us to, we got to move out of that stage and get to action.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. We had this brainstorm. We had this movie that we watched together, and this is what I took from it, and this is how I want to market now. Okay, great. Who's doing this? Who's doing what?
Yeah.
So I would say it's also being able to move out of ideation and into action.
Yeah. How do you communicate the vision so that people actually buy into it?
Was great. I mean, there's times where, as a leader, depending on where you're at in your company, it's like you can create the vision together, right? So it's like, hey, our vision hasn't been clear in the past. I want us to have a very clear vision. Let's pull this in together.
Yeah.
Or if you already have the vision, then it's getting everyone to see themselves in the vision, right? So what is our goal at the end of the day, right? Our goal is to help, women in their businesses to feel empowered to live their own lives however they choose to live them. Okay, well, how does this mean something to you, right?
Yes.
How does this help you? So I think that's really important when you bring people in if you're looking to get the buy-in. Because again, there's some leaders that say, this is the vision, you're here for this vision. If you're not here for this vision, this isn't the place for you.
Yeah.
Also has a time and place. But the more that we can get people to see themselves in the vision and see what they add to that vision, that's how
So
we
you get people
that
to
buy-in.
decide their vision as part of the bigger vision? You give them the ownership of deciding that?
It is a little bit of being able to let them see themselves in the vision is the way I would put it.
Yeah.
Right? So what's your vision, Jess?
Well, my vision is to help more women become unstoppable.
Oh, I love it. I love it, right? Right
in
with the
face
book.
of success, yeah.
And so this idea of becoming unstoppable. So when you're talking to your team, it's like, what is your role in that? Why does that mean something to you? And I would ask that. Like, if you're going to be a part of this team, like, of course, yes, you need a paycheck. I get that. But it's also like, I want people here who want to be here.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you? And I want to hear from you. What does that vision mean to you? How do you see this in your own life, or, in your mom and your sister and your wife, if that isn't you directly?
Yeah.
So it is getting people to see themselves in the vision and establishing their own why. Because we have a why as a company, an organization, but you as an individual need a why as well.
How would you translate that then if, let's say, someone doesn't yet have a team? How can they utilize that same ethos in building a community, whether it's through social media or a podcast or just even within their clientele? How can they also get their audience to have almost an ownership over their vision?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if we roll with that same vision, right, of helping women to be unstoppable, it's like, okay, I'm going to my community and I'm asking for their stories. I'm asking for, why does this mean something to you? Why are you here? How has this made a difference in your life, right? Because I'm reposting or I'm sharing these authentic stories of people saying, this is the difference that you made in my life, Jess. This is how you helped me to go from this job that I hated to running my own 6, 7, 8-figure business, right? And so it's, again, them seeing that mission and that vision that they were drawn into and being able to say, this is what I created and how I'm able to live a more fulfilled, happy, successful life because of that bigger vision. So it's kind of like a mini vision under your bigger vision.
I think it's so important because as we move into the era of AI and everything, I think that is going to be the secret sauce to anyone's success, whether they're building an online business. I truly think community is everything. And so understanding how to lead with purpose, with passion, with putting the ego aside, with everything that you've taught us today is so powerful. So thank you hugely for sharing that. One last question though.
Okay.
You're not off the hook yet.
Okay.
What does unstoppable mean to you?
Ooh, that's such a great question. Unstoppable. I think unstoppable to me is a mentality, right? I look at it as the mentality of I am going to do whatever I want to do in this world, right? For positive reasons. But I'm going that I'm unstoppable in the sense of my goals are not crazy. They're not unrealistic, right? When I say, I'm a millionaire, I'm going to be a millionaire, right? That it's like, I'm unstoppable. You can laugh at me. You can think what you want, right? I think we all, especially for entrepreneurs, we have those people around us that are like, girl, like, what, you're not going to do that. Like, what are you talking about? That's not for people like us or blah, blah, blah. Like, you have those voices. But unstoppable is like, block out the noise and stay clear on the signal, right? I see the signal and I'm going to block out the noise and I'm going to go for it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all your wisdom today.
Of course,
Where
thanks
can
for having me.
people get more of your magic?
Yes. So our company, Lead Different Consulting. So our website, www.leaddifferentconsulting.com.
Yeah, we'll
You
put the
can
link
find
in
me
the show
on
notes.
LinkedIn. The Erica Ferguson is I'm on LinkedIn, and lots of different resources there.
Incredible. Thank you for hanging out.
Yeah.
We're going to hang out again on the weekend.
Yes, we are.
Well, I'll see you there.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.